And we are live on Facebook, on YouTube. Awesome. I
Great.
love it when everything works smoothly. It's very nice.
So if people are just watching on YouTube instead of Zoom, we couldn't see and hear them.
No, we won't see or hear them. I will be watching. I'm going to turn on my phones and dial them into both channels. I got two phones, so I put one on YouTube and one on Facebook, and that way I can watch the chats that way. Just so that if people do want to communicate with us across those channels, it's easy enough for them to do so. So there you go. Great. And we do have people already watching us on Facebook, I see, which is always great. Welcome, everybody.
Well, I'll just tell you this time for the first question, and we'll do it that way.
What's that?
I'll let you know when it's time to do each trivia question.
Yeah, you can just let me know exactly, and I'll manage. I'll be all the tech. You can just tell me what you want to have happen. We'll make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Joe coming in too.
All right. Welcome, Joe. Let me see. I'm always doing okay, how can I pull up all these at the same time as trying to talk? Let's see. There we go. Very good. Thank you, everybody who's joined us already. We will be starting here momentarily. I'm just making sure we have all our streams up. Then I'll be saying a couple words. Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
All right. Marty, it's 7:01. I do love folks who are prompt, and I like to respect that promptness and people who are able to get here. So I will go ahead and kick us off. Let me turn on the recording because we are recording this. There we go, the official announcement. This meeting is being recorded. We are also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. We have the spotlight on Marty and myself. If you're sharing your video, I believe only the people on Zoom may see you. Occasionally things do get picked up. So if you're in any way uncomfortable with sharing your video across the internet, you've been notified. So I'm just letting you know right now here at the top. Let me tell you all who I am. I'm Clayton Cheever, as it says right here in the window. I'm the assistant director at the Thomas Crane Public Library in Quincy, Massachusetts. And it is my honor and pleasure to have you all join us this evening. Thank you so much for connecting your accounts to see us. We are live here on Zoom, and I can certainly share if people are interested in, and if you're watching us on a different platform, you'd like to join us on Zoom, I will put it the Zoom ID in the chats for both of those, so people can come and join us here. In Zoom is going to be the best way to use the chat function, and we also have some really fun quizzes, some polls that we're going to do to kind of understand and help you flex your Red Sox knowledge. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. So those are going to work best in Zoom. But if you're sharing this with your family and broadcasting YouTube up to the TV in the family room, is a better way to go. Certainly catch us out on the YouTube channel. You can just go out to YouTube and look for Thomas Crane Library, and you'll see us there. Likewise, if you're on the bus and you want to watch us on Facebook and Zoom is not working on their bus ride home, well then tune in on Facebook and find us out there, and we're live streaming there too. We'll be watching the chat and all those folks. So welcome, good evening. I'm glad you could join us. There's a bunch of things happening here at the Thomas Crane Library. Well, I say here, I'm not sitting in the library right now, and I don't think anybody, the rest of you are in the library either, but we're all bringing these programs obviously to you here online, and I'm just so glad we can do that. We have a bunch of programs happening this week and all month long. Tomorrow evening, I should know off the top of my head, but you can go check our calendar. I'm sorry, I'm not giving you a very good promo for what we have coming up. But please do go out to our website at thomascranelibrary.org and just learn about what's going on. You can join our newsletter. You can follow us on all the social media channels. There's just a lot of great stuff happening at the library. So much of what we do here at the library is made possible by the Friends. The Friends are the people who ran the bookstore back when we were able to have an operating bookstore before the pandemic shut everything down. But they are still a membership-based organization. For as little as $10 a year, you can count yourself an official member of the Friends. So I encourage you to go out to our website, thomascranelibrary.org/friends, to learn more. I can send a link on that in the chats too. They just really help us so much. They're making this program possible to bring to you tonight. Marty may mention he's a very prolific author. He wrote this great book he's going to talk to us about tonight. And I do want to put a plug in for a program that he's doing later this month, all on a celebration of animation. And maybe he'll give a little plug for that himself as well. Marty, what's the date for that program? I'm not looking in front of me. Do you know off the top of your head?
That's a good question too.
I can look it up. No worries at all. I'll go and look check my calendar while you're talking.
I've scheduled an awful lot of those. That's a celebration of animation, the 100 greatest cartoon characters of all time. I'm the only author ever to rank the greatest cartoon characters of all time. And that program is a blast. That was a lot of fun. I show a lot of funny cartoons and everyone has a good time. So
I'm really looking forward to that one. So,
yeah.
so I'll put the date and the that's going to be out on Zoom. I think we're actually going to use the exact same Zoom link as we used tonight. So if you have that bookmarked somewhere, you can just come back on the date that I will put in the chats. So a couple of technical pieces. So if you're wondering how to interact, you can use the chat to talk with Marty and I. If you want to speak when we're taking questions and such, there's a raise your hand feature in Zoom if you're familiar with that. If you turn on your video and try to wave us down, I can only see a few people at a time, so I can try to catch you that way. Your best bet is to use the chat. If you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, you can send a chat there. I'm going to be watching those streams as well. And I encourage you to just get our attention. You can also in Zoom interact right with the poll feature. So you can also always email me. I'm not going to be checking my email during this program, but if you have any feedback, any suggestions for future programs or anything, you can reach me personally at ccheever@ocln.org. I'll put that in the chat too, so you can just copy it from there. It's my first initial, my last name at OCLN, the initials for Old Colony Library Network. So you've all heard way more than you thought you ever wanted to hear from me, probably way more than you wanted to hear. So let me stop talking and just give a warm welcome to our guest speaker tonight, Marty Gitlin. Marty, thank you for joining us. I'm so glad to have you here. Let's talk about the Red Sox.
Well, I'm glad I'm here too. And I'm glad you called me Marty. The book says Martin. The only person that ever called me Martin was my mother, and that was when she was mad at me. So I'm definitely more of a Marty kind of guy. And I do thank everyone for joining the program. I am the author of the Ultimate Boston Red Sox Time Machine book. It's 22. The program here is a little bit based on the book. It's 22 really fun chapters and enlightening chapters about the greatest and most interesting teams and players and events and moments in Boston Red Sox history, going back to 1901, the founding of the American League. So it's 120 years of Red Sox history. And it's interesting how I became a Red Sox fan. Living in Cleveland, Ohio, my father used to take us to New England on vacations quite often, almost every summer, because he loved the area so much. We went to Cape Cod and we went to Maine and New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And one day in 1967, coincidentally enough and wonderfully enough, the Impossible Dream season, he took me to Fenway Park because I was such a big baseball fan, sports fan in general. And it was just such an incredible experience for me because I was used to going to Old Municipal Stadium in Cleveland, which was an 80,000 seat mausoleum, way out distant near on the lake. And there was only like a couple thousand fans would trickle in. You know, it was just the team was bad and there was little interest and the attendance was always bad. And here I was at Fenway Park. It was right off the street and there were fans just pouring into it was a June day, Saturday. Fans were just pouring in and it was just so exciting. And then when I went into Fenway Park and saw all the nuances that they didn't have in that big bowl in Cleveland Stadium, they had the pesky pole and the green monster and all the nuances with the fencing, jutting out and jutting in. It was just really, really exciting. And then there was the stands were getting packed and it was just great. And so from that time forward, I became a Red Sox fan as well as an Indians fan. And when my publisher later on in life, I became a sports writer and I covered the Cleveland Indians on a full-time basis. And I covered all the series against the Red Sox home and away. And I did a lot of playoffs with the Red Sox as well. And I was still a big Red Sox fan. And when my publisher later on, when I quit the newspaper business, thankfully, and became an author, he offered to have me write 2 books to start this series of Major League Baseball history books. And I chose the Indians and Red Sox immediately. He said, "Oh, give it some time, think about it." I said, "No, I don't have to think about it. I'm going to do the Indians and the Red Sox," and that's what I did. Now I want to start the program. Whoops, let me start over. Oh, hold on just a minute, please. I got off. Oh, no, I didn't. Here we go, Google Slides. Now, there we go. The ultimate presentation for Red Sox Nation. And what I think is cool about Red Sox Nation is that most major league franchises, their fan base is based in the city in which they play. And the fan base for the Red Sox is unique because it's really not based anywhere. Red Sox Nation isn't just Boston. It covers all of Massachusetts and Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont and Rhode Island and parts of Connecticut. And there are transplants all over the country, Boston transplants that are big Red Sox fan. In fact, I've attended Red Sox Yankees game at Yankee Stadium. And when the Yankees, when the Red Sox do something well, there's pretty good cheering for the Red Sox in Yankee Stadium. So it's always something there, and it's really an amazing situation. And a lot of people think that Red Sox Nation was really born in 1967 with the Impossible Dream season. And I agree with that to some extent. But the fact is that, in my opinion, Red Sox Nation was really kind of launched when Red Sox were launched in 1901. There was a guy named Michael McGreevy, and he was a saloon owner at the Third Base Saloon on Columbus Avenue in Boston. And he kind of fostered this fan club called the Royal Rooters. And he was known as Michael Nuff Said McGreevy because he would always finish every argument or every discussion about sports by saying Nuff Said. And here's a little bit more about Nuff Said McGreevy and the Royal Rooters.
The Royal Rooters appear to be a first. They would march up Ruggles Street to the new stadium, and they would have a marching band with them. McGreevy had his shillelagh to lead the procession.
Nuff Said was clearly an organizer, and he was the final authority.
They were trying to be obnoxious. They were trying to, drive people from New York and Pittsburgh crazy, and they did a really good job of it.
McGreevy's saloon looked like Cheers after a Victorian interior decorator. They got a hold of it.
Our boys will beat you on the field. We'll beat you off the field and take your money home with us.
Gambling was big business.
You had John F. Kennedy's grandfather was a member of the Royal Rooters.
Just Grandpa's presence gave a special bit of panache to the Royal Rooters.
It was an extremely democratic organization, democratic in that allowed everyone to behave like a rowdy.
They sort of were the Johnny Appleseeds of this relation between the fans and sports.
These men were fine men, had great personality. They were very emotional. They went to Pittsburgh, they went by train to New York. They were examples of second generation Irish who really made Boston what it is today.
The Roxbury Rooters, they rallied around the fact that there was this fire, and that not only were they going to root for the baseball team, but they're rallying together to pull together the community after extremely devastating fire.
Now, one of the interesting things about the Royal Rooters is they used to travel with the team, and they would travel to away games. But when the team was actually called the Boston Americans at that time, and they would actually in home games they would sit behind the catcher near the backstop, and so there would be pass balls and wild pitches going back there, and the catcher had to go fish the ball out from their feet because they were actually sitting on the field, and it was kind of an interesting thing. But anyway, the Reds, when they became the Red Sox, when they were the Americans, and then they became the Red Sox, they were a very fine franchise. In fact, the Boston Americans won the first World Series. The first World Series was played in 1903, and the Red Sox, the Americans, beat the Pirates, Pittsburgh at that time, and they remained good for quite some time. They really started to peak out in 1914, and I do want to give my first trivia question here because I don't want to go too far. So Clayton, let's do the first trivia question of the night.
All right, so this is going to work. We are asking a question. You should see it on your screen in Zoom. Let me go ahead and launch the poll. All right, so the question is, in what year did Ted Williams make his Red Sox debut? So those of you joining on Zoom, please give us your best guess. And we can see as they come in, we'll leave it up here for a couple of minutes. You can also let us know If you're watching us on Facebook or Zoom, if you want to put your best guess in the chat on those, you certainly can.
We could just 1 minute.
I was going to see.
I don't want to.
No, we don't want to let it go too long. We don't have a ton of folks, so I see that we've got 2 more people. I don't know who may be trying to make up their mind. I see we've got 4 of the 6 folks who are here. We have somebody who's guessing 39. I'll put out from YouTube, or no, I think that's Facebook that I'm watching on that phone. So, Marty, should we go ahead and end the polling, and you can tell people the answer? All right, here we go. So it looks like it was split. If we include the folks from Facebook, we've got 3 people for 1939 and 2 people for 41. There's the official results if you want to see them.
You want me to give the answer, or do you give it?
Oh, no, please go ahead. It's your show.
1939.
All right. Nice job, everybody.
In fact, 1941, Ted Williams was very close to going off to war. He lost a few years to the war, but 1939 is the answer. Very good. Now, okay, so do you just take that off the screen? How does this work? You're the first person to actually do a poll. I can, there we go.
Yep, I think I took it down. So I've got the next one ready as soon as you want to ask the next question.
Good. Okay, now the Red Sox were a charter member of the American League, of course, in 1901. And but they really hit their stride around 1914 when they signed a guy from Baltimore, who you all know, named George Herman Ruth. And Babe Ruth was a Hall of Fame caliber pitcher. And the Red Sox understood his prowess with the bat, but they were very hesitant to use him as a hitter, everyday player. In fact, they didn't really at all. And so he went 78-40 over a 4-year period with the Red Sox, in which they won 3 World Series championships. Here we got another person coming in. And they had some great players even before Babe Ruth joined the team. Cy Young, of course, and Tris Speaker and Smokey Joe Wood, another pitcher. These were Hall of Famers, one and all. And they, like I say, they won 3 World Series from 1914 to 1918, and were an absolute juggernaut. And I like this particular video. Babe Ruth really solidified their greatness during that time. And I like this video because it explains the interaction between Babe Ruth and the fans of Boston and his teammates and the city of Boston itself. And it shows a little bit about Babe Ruth in a Boston uniform. Go ahead, Clayton. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for you. I don't know if when you shared your screen before, there's a couple of boxes at the bottom to optimize for video sharing. And the last video was a little choppy on my end. So if we could try resharing your screen and make sure the box is checked, it may make a better video streaming experience for folks.
Share?
So yeah, if you just do, if you just end the share and then reshare it and check when you reshare it, it asks you which screen you want to share. On the bottom, there's 2 check boxes. One is for audio and one is to optimize it for video streaming. And I think that box may not have been checked.
Okay, so what do I hit next? I apologize, I've never done that before.
No, it's okay. It's they make it a little hidden. So have you hit the reshare button? We haven't stopped sharing your screen, but maybe you're doing a reshare.
All I see is where it says new share.
So hit that. Yeah, do a new share. Let's try that.
Okay, and then hit share again.
So before you hit share again, at the bottom of that, do you see the checkbox?
Optimize screen sharing?
That's what we're looking for. Optimize for video streaming. Yeah.
Share computer sound. Okay, let's see how that works.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, here we go. Let's see how this Babe Ruth video comes out, if it sounds better.
Yeah, boy, Freddie, put it there, kid. All right, you're great. Boys, baseball is just like life. Yesterday, Freddie was a failure. Today, he's a big hero. It just goes to show if you keep on trying, you'll come.
Uh-oh.
That one's silent for you too, huh, Marty?
No, I can hear it, but I've lost you. I don't see you guys anymore.
Okay, well, we're still here, but I can't hear your. We can't hear the audio anymore. Maybe stop sharing altogether, and we can start the video again.
It says you are screen sharing. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe just end, if we stop screen sharing, maybe we have a competing screen share. I don't know what's going on. It's weird.
I'll do new share. Should I take the optimize out?
No, I think the optimize is fine, but let's go ahead. It is looking really strange. The whole screen share is really weird right now. Like it's all pixelated. Maybe you, let's cancel sharing altogether. Just stop share is an option there. Or if you like, I can share my screen and then we can go back to yours. That might, yeah, well, I'll try it that way.
I don't know if I'm still sharing right now or not.
You are, so I'm going to go ahead and share mine. So now I'm sharing it. And
I'm
now
sorry about this, guys.
I just want to make sure everybody gets a good experience. So now go ahead and share again. No, we're not seeing anybody's screen. All right.
Okay.
And I promise we'll stop with this. We'll just let it roll. Thank you, Marty. I appreciate it.
Okay, here we go.
Come out on top as Freddie did.
George Herman Ruth Jr. was born February 6, 1895, in Baltimore, Maryland, to German-American parents. As a child, this troublemaker was sent to a reformatory where he was introduced to baseball. Ruth excelled at the sport, and by age 19, his hitting and pitching talent drew interest from minor league owner Jack Dunn. Dunn wanted to sign Ruth to his Baltimore Orioles and became his legal guardian in order to do so. Teammates teased him and nicknamed him Jack Dunn's baby, which was later shortened to Babe. Soon, Babe Ruth was sold to Boston and made his major league debut for the Red Sox on July 11, 1914. He rose to prominence the following year with a 23-12 record, a league-leading 1.75 ERA, and 9 shutouts. Though he soon transitioned away from pitching, he made his mark with numerous records. 5 years into his pro career, Babe Ruth also had 3 World Series to his name. However, on December 26, 1919, Red Sox owner Harry Frazee sold Babe Ruth to the Yankees in a landmark deal. That deal proved great for New York and disastrous for Boston.
Okay, did that turn out okay?
It seemed okay to me. Yeah, the video was a lot smoother that time. Hopefully it works for everybody else. It's obviously old video, but that was great. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's an old video. Yeah, these get a little bit sharper now. Now, Babe Ruth actually won the ERA title in the American League in 1915, and he began obviously revolutionizing baseball with his hitting. But owner Harry Frazee, by 1918, when the Red Sox won another pennant, attendance at Fenway Park had been cut in half. The novelty of Fenway Park was starting to wear off, and the attendance was down. World War I was going on, and Harry Frazee started to get a little panicky. He had a theater business on Broadway that was failing, and a lot of people believe he actually started to trade away players before he got rid of Babe Ruth, like Dutch Leonard and Ernie Shore, wonderful players on that team, Duffy Lewis, and he started to break up the Red Sox. Well, in 1919, he panicked further because of these financial concerns, and a lot of people believe that the reason that he got rid of Babe Ruth or sold him to the Yankees was because he wanted to fund this play called No No Nanette on Broadway. But there's a lot more going on behind the scenes here. There are a lot of people that believe that Harry Frazee got rid of Babe Ruth because Babe Ruth was a womanizer and a gambler. And in the community in Boston, some people didn't like that. They felt that that Babe Ruth was kind of a negative influence on the youth of Boston. And that was another reason that he got rid of him. Well, whatever the case may be, the Red Sox went through, after they got rid of Babe Ruth, they just did not keep up with the times. And they embarked on an era that was not only the worst era in Red Sox history, but one of the worst eras in the history of baseball. From 1922 to 1933, the Red Sox finished last or second last in the American League every year. That's 12 years. And not only that, but they finished last most of those years and lost more than 100 games on many occasions, and were just the laughing stock of the American League. Well, that started to change in the mid 30s. They started to acquire some real talent, including one of the greatest sluggers of all time named Jimmy Fox, and a pitcher named Lefty Grove, who was a first ballot Hall of Famer as well. And they started to get good. But it wasn't until 1939 that we talked about that they really started to thrive. And that was because they brought up Ted Williams. Now, Ted Williams drove in 145 runs in his rookie year, which is phenomenal. And he became noted very quickly as the greatest pure hitter in baseball. He was a very scientific hitter, and he was the last hitter in baseball to bat over 400. In 1941, he batted 406. And in fact, Ted Williams was batting 401 going into the last day of the season. It was a doubleheader. And he was asked by the manager, do you want to sit this doubleheader out so you can maintain your 400 batting average? And he refused. He said, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it all the way from beginning to end. And he did. He got 6 hits in the doubleheader and ended up batting 406. And he remains the last player in Major League Baseball to bat over 400. Now, here's a little bit about Ted Williams, not just as a scientific hitter, but his relationship with his teammates and his relationship with, and what a great man he was and how well respected he was, not just by baseball players and baseball people, but other people as well.
But actually, Ted was a very generous soul and great to his fellow players.
In fact, Williams counted Dom DiMaggio, Joe's younger brother, among his closest clubhouse friends, along with shortstop Johnny Pesky and his old Pacific Coast League teammate, Bobby Doerr.
He was just a really true friend. He would do anything in the world for you. And everybody on the ball club liked Ted. He's the type of fellow that draws attention. It seems like if he walked into the room, if there was 15 people in there, within 4 or 5 minutes, they'd all be around Ted.
I thought he was the almighty when I first got there. Of course, I was the third man in, and he used to make fun of me once in a while. And he'd call me by my Christian name, but he didn't even pronounce it right. He'd say, Johnny Pavaskovich, huh? He said, what is that, a disease?
He lived like the kid that he wanted to be from the start. He hung out with a clubhouse guy. He lived almost like a small towner in Boston.
He didn't go out to dinner with a lot of ball players. He wasn't a big carouser, but he collected a bunch of people that he came across, ordinary people who he became closest to.
The crowd was cabbies and firemen and guys he'd met on the street, and none of the nabobs of Boston was invited. He didn't like people who thought they were something great and maybe thought he wasn't.
When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a baseball player, and we didn't have television then. We just had magazines. And I used to read about Ted Williams, and because he was left-handed, and I was left-handed, because he was from Southern California, and I was, because as I learned more about him, he grew up in a neighborhood very similar to mine, I just made a connection to him in my head. And I thought he had just an incredible swing. I tried to pattern my swing after his, but from looking at pictures. And the more I learned about him, the more I realized that he was a scientific hitter with just incredible natural ability.
Anticipation. You see a fastball and your eye-hand coordination isn't quite good enough. You got to say fastball and start in that area. So you anticipate what's going to go on. Up, there it is. Bam.
Ted just brought a passion to hitting a baseball that I don't think Boston had seen, or maybe anybody had seen. Nobody had deconstructed that simple act the way he had.
When he talked about baseball, it was like water coming out of the river.
In the batter's box, he was like a scientist.
He knew why the curveball curved, and he knew brains in the bat.
And he made a study of the pitchers. He knew more about every pitcher in the league than they knew about themselves.
Trying to sneak a fastball by Ted Williams was like trying to sneak a sunbeam by a rooster in the morning. It's not going to happen.
He did things in his head that they do now in computers.
And the scientific mind, together with the physical abilities, the touch, the feel, he had to the utmost.
He used to take his bats to the post office and weigh them to make sure they hadn't gained an ounce of moisture. He didn't have to look a certain way. He didn't have to have shined shoes. He didn't wear a tie. But on the ball field, in the batter's box, nothing was beyond or beneath his notice. He had to be perfect.
But
I read a very interesting article about Ted Williams by a baseball writer, and what he indicated was he felt that the beginning of analytics is a big deal now. The very careful and in-depth study of baseball hitting and pitching, and without going into too much detail. And he really thought that Ted Williams was so far ahead of his time that he actually launched the idea of analytics 40, 50 years before it really became reality. And it's been said that his eyesight was so strong that Ted Williams could actually read the label of a 78 record as it went around the turntable. And I don't know if anyone there has any 78 records from way back when, but you try that sometime, and it's certainly not easy to do. I am going to give you a trivia question that Clayton does not have, real quick, and you could just put it in chat and see if you got the answer. Could you guys all hear me? Because I don't see it anymore. You can hear me, right?
You're coming through loud and clear, Marty.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Ted Williams in the late 60s and early 70s was the manager of the year. He had a short stint as a manager. And in 1969, he became manager of the year with what team in the American League, a woe-begone franchise that he turned around for one season? Does anybody know? You could just shout it out if you want.
Everybody's muted, so we can't hear them. So people are saying the Washington Senators has been shouted out.
That is correct.
All right, people got it.
Nice. Wow, guys, that's a tough one.
That was quick.
That's a tough one.
We got some pros. We got some sharp folks here in Quincy. Watch out.
I've done some programs, and a lot of people don't get it. Now you can give the second trivia question.
All right. So this is about the right field foul pole. The question is, what do we call the right field foul pole at Fenway Park that's named after a legendary Red Sox shortstop? And so you can go ahead and put your answer up there. The questions, hopefully you appreciate some of the answers here. Is it Petrocelli's post? Perhaps it's Nomar's noodle. It could be the pesky pole, but maybe it's the Cronin crux or Vern Stevens sideline. See if we can stump anybody with this one. We did have somebody who chimed in on Facebook who also knew it was the Senators, which is awesome to see.
Good.
Yeah.
You guys are too sharp, man.
I don't think we're stumping anybody with this one, Marty. Everybody across the board.
I have since I gave you that question to do, I've eliminated it because I figured it was too easy for Red Sox fans. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
you guys
everybody got it.
You got it nailed. Pesky pole is correct. The one I got a couple other ones that'll be a little bit tougher for you. I guarantee it.
Right on.
Okay, so anyway, we can get rid of that one. Oh, I can get rid of that one myself. Now, the only opportunity, this was not in today's era where there's all these playoff rounds. In 1946 and all the way up through until 1969, there were no playoffs. The postseason was the World Series. So it was very, very difficult to get in, especially when the Yankees were tough year after year after year and had a dynasty. The only time that Ted Williams had an opportunity to show himself in the postseason was the 1946 World Series. Now, the Red Sox had some great players back then. They had Dom DiMaggio and Johnny Pesky and Bobby Doerr and a really tough pitcher named Ferris, who had a couple good years before he had shoulder surgery and kind of left and kind of went downhill. But anyway, this was this chance. They had a game 7 against the St. Louis Cardinals in 1946. And they were tied 3-3 in the 8th inning when this happened.
This brings up Harry Walker, a timely hitter during the series. Slaughter is off for the pitch. Walker swings and lines with double to left center. Slaughter kept on going, rounding third base at full speed, scoring all the way from first, when the relay throw from Johnny Pesky reached home too late for a play on Slaughter. This important run put the Cardinals out in front, by a score of 4-3.
Well, that's how the game ended, 4-3, St. Louis, and Ted Williams never did win a World Series championship. But Johnny Pesky gets a bad rap. The fact is that he gets criticized a lot for his hesitation to throw home on that play, and the thought is that he might have been able to get Slaughter out at the plate. Well, a lot of people that have kind of studied this video feel that Slaughter was going to score anyway, no matter how good the throw was and how quick the throw was, that Slaughter was going to score anyway. It's all up to a speculation, but that was the thought that I've read a lot, was that Johnny Pesky kind of gets a bad rap, and he has, since been vindicated now that the Red Sox have won 4 World Series championships. Not too many people are complaining about Johnny Pesky, and he became, a coach for the team, and he's really one of the most beloved Red Sox of all time. Now, we talked about the era of the 1920s and early 1930s when the Red Sox were bad. They really only had one more era, and it was a relatively short era in which they really, really struggled. And one of the problems was, after Jackie Robinson integrated baseball in 1947, team after team after team followed suit and started signing some really fine African-American ball players. Well, the Red Sox, there was some racism involved with management and managers that they had, and upper management, and they just downright refused to sign black ball players for year after year, especially in the early and mid 50s and later 50s, when other teams were, adding all sorts of black and Cuban ball players. They were not doing so. And it was not until 1959, when a guy named Pumpsie Green integrated the Red Sox, that the Red Sox became the last team in Major League Baseball to integrate. And Ted Williams retired the next year, and the Red Sox really struggled in the early 60s. And they finally started signing some talented black ball players like Reggie Smith and George Scott, and they started getting better. Well, they didn't start getting better until 1967. This was the impossible dream season. The Red Sox finished 9th in the American League in 1966. They were not supposed to do anything in 1967. And that's when, their best ball player was Carl Yastrzemski, and they had some other good ball players, but they still were not very good. In 1967, Carl Yastrzemski had one of the greatest seasons in the history of baseball by one individual. He won the Triple Crown, and he was the last guy in the American League to win the Triple Crown for almost 50 years, until Miguel Cabrera did it only about 7 or 8 years ago. So it was really a phenomenal season. The Red Sox embarked on, I think, the greatest pennant race in the history of the American League in 1967. 4 teams, the Tigers, the White Sox, the Red Sox, and the Twins, were all still involved in the pennant race on the last weekend of the season. And on the last day of the season, 3 teams were still involved. And here's a little story about that great pennant race in 1967 and the heroics of one Carl Yastrzemski.
Do we want to ask the question about the manager that year? Is that going to be given away in this video, Marty?
You know what? Let's do that. Yeah,
October 1st of 19.
A good idea.
Yeah, I thought we might be giving away. So let's go ahead and have another poll for folks.
Good idea. Let's do it.
Great. So the question now is, who was the manager of the Red Sox in this impossible dream season of 67? Was it Dick Williams, Billy Herman, Darrell Johnson, Eddie Casco, or Johnny Pesky? And you can answer if you want to put it in the chat, if you want to answer on the screen. If you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, you can put it live in the chats there if we're watching. And we'll give everybody a minute or two, or not a full minute, but we'll give everybody just a little moment here to put in their questions, or put in their answers to the question, the manager for the Red Sox in the impossible dream season of 67. So it looks like we have unanimous agreement. People are thinking, I'm going to go ahead and shall I reveal it, Marty? The answer.
Correct again, guys. You guys are too sharp, man. You guys are too sharp. Dick Williams is correct. And it's an interesting story about Dick Williams. I was a big fan of game shows when I was a kid, and I was watching a game show that was in its first year called Hollywood Squares, which you all remember. It was hosted by a guy named Peter Marshall, whose son actually played Major League Baseball. His son was named Pete Lecoq. He played Major League Baseball. But anyway, he asked a contestant somewhere around February or so in 1967, what do you do for a living? And the contestant said, I am going to manage the Boston Red Sox this year. And it was Dick Williams. So Dick Williams was actually one of the very first contestants on Hollywood Squares. And for some reason, it's one of those, I can't hardly remember my own name sometimes, but I still remember that. And here is a little story about that unbelievable 1967 pennant race.
1967 saw 3 teams with identical records playing for the American League title. While the first-place Tigers hosted the Angels, the first-place Red Sox hosted the first-place Twins. Minnesota took a 2-0 lead against Sox ace Jim Lomborg. That was the score when Lomborg led off the 6th. Manager Dick Williams chose not to pinch hit.
Cesar Tovar was the third baseman at the time, and as you do when you come up to the plate, you kind of scope out where everybody is, and he was playing back behind the bag.
Lomborg surprised everyone with a bunt single, igniting a rally. Yaz tied the game with a 2-run single.
Lomborg scores. Adair will score.
Yaz went 4 for 4, so he had gone 7 for 8 in the 2 most critical games of the season. With Lomborg still on the mound in the 9th, the Twins were down to their final out.
Little soft pop-up. Petrocelli will take it. He does. The ball game is over. The Red Sox win it. And what a mob on this field. They're coming out of the stands from all over.
It was just stopped in time to see all the players coming in onto the mound and congratulating you, and then turning around, all of a sudden seeing strange faces, and then there was more strange faces.
Bill Nowlands was one of those faces.
I believe I was in the first 20 or 30 or so, because I got out there in time to get to Jim Lomborg.
All of a sudden your teammates are gone and you're surrounded by strange, happy faces, headed towards right field, the pesky pole, and pretty soon I realized that I didn't want to go that direction. I really wanted to go to the dugout.
Jack Carroll and Joe Martin were still working at Fenway, not as vendors, but by now they were police officers. It was up to them and patrolman Kenny Nave to rush Lomborg to safety.
People in the dugout were yelling, go, go, go. We had to get out to the mound to get Lomborg.
By the time we got to him, of course, his hat was gone and they were ripping his glove. One guy had the glove. We just grabbed the glove and put it back.
And now you're moving in inches trying to get him to the dugout.
Once we got him down there, whew, but I'd never seen that many people in my life. Really? Oh my God.
Pops it up. Back of the short left.
In the clubhouse, the Sox listened to the Tigers-Angels game on the radio. And when Detroit's Dick McAuliffe hit into a game-ending double play, the Sox were American League champs.
Sudden for the TV stations to switch back and go back to the Red Sox locker room with them in celebration was just unbelievable.
7 for 8 in the final 2 biggest games of your life. You're too much.
I was just trying best I could, Don, and I had something going for me. I wanted to win it for Mr. Yawkey. He deserved it.
That was without a doubt my finest memory of being at Fenway Park.
With 44 homers, 121 runs batted in, and a .326 batting average, Yaz had won the Triple Crown.
I saw Willie Mays play. I saw him break in. I played with Jackie Robinson, Duke Snyder, Campanella, Pee Wee Reese, all on one ball club. He had a year I've never watched a player have before or since. That explains it. He did it all.
Toby Coffin added another hero to his list in '67, his father.
And he said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, well, I'm going to school like I always do. He said, well, what if I told you I got a couple of tickets to game 1? And I just melted. Getting into the ballpark and seeing people hanging from the billboards across the street. The excitement was something that I'd never seen before, before that day, and I'm not sure that I've ever seen anything, beat it to this day.
The Cardinals took Game 1 at Fenway thanks to speedster Lou Brock, who went 4 for 4, stole 2 bases, and scored 2 runs. A dominant Bob Gibson struck out 10 Red Sox.
We had the team meeting and stuff, and everybody was saying, you got to be careful of this guy, and you got to be careful of Brock. You can't let him get on base. He's the igniter. And by the time the thing was over, does anyone have anything to say? And I said, well, how is Lou Brock going to be able to get on base if he's on his back?
Game 2 began with a Lomborg pitch right under Lou Brock's chin. Lomborg was at his best. He had a no-hitter until there were 2 outs in the 8th. Gentleman Jim completed a 1-hitter. Yaz, still red hot, hit 2 homers and drove in 4 as the Sox won 5-0. In St. Louis, the Sox dropped the 3rd game, and the incomparable Gibson threw a 1-hit shutout in Game 4. The Cards were just 1 win away from the title. A determined Lomborg got the call in the must-win 5th game. Again, he shut out the Cards into the 9th. He had thrown 17 consecutive scoreless innings in the World Series.
It's a zone where physically you have all of your skills, and mentally you have all of your focus, and it all comes to play together.
St. Louis put a run on the board in the 9th, but Lomborg got the 3-1 win. So it was back to Fenway for Game 6. The Sox played long ball. Rico hit 2 homers. Yaz and Reggie Smith also went deep, and the Sox won it 8-4, forcing a Game 7. The impossible dream season again came down to just 1 game. With only 2 days rest, Lomborg got the call to pitch Game 7.
He had pitched a couple times during the year because of his military commitment with 2 days rest. He had no decision in one and won another one, so I didn't think I was going that far out on a limb.
Bob Gibson's epic performance continued as he tossed a 3-hitter and homered to end the impossible dream season. But there was no doubt the season was a success.
It changed everything around. The stands.
Oh, there you go. The reason I usually cut that off before the World Series, but I didn't want to kind of show as an honor to Bob Gibson, who just died a couple days ago, one of the greatest and most competitive pitchers of all time. So I did want to show that. But anyway, the Red Sox, unlike a lot of other teams that go up and down throughout their history, the Red Sox stayed real strong in the early 70s. They had a couple nice pitchers in Sonny Siebert, and they had Louis Tiant, and they had some really good players, but it all came together in 1975. And I want to give you another trivia question, Clayton. Let's go with that 1975 trivia question, so we don't give it away with a video.
All right. So the 1975 question is asking who it was in their 2nd year as the starting shortstop when the Sox won the pennant in 75. Was it Glenn Hoffman, Jackie Gutierrez, Luis Aparicio, Rick Burleson, or Carl Yastrzemski? Marty, did I get close enough on those pronunciations?
You got them all right. Aparicio.
Got them all right. All right. We have folks who are chiming in. You can go ahead and let us know in Zoom, or I am watching.
Disagreement this time. That's good.
That is good.
I like a little variety.
We have a couple of votes on Facebook for Burleson. I'm tipping the hat for folks there. Let's go ahead and end the polling, and we'll see. We'll share the results there. So it was split between Hoffman and Burleson in Zoom, and 2 votes for Burleson on Facebook. So Marty, the answer?
Both votes are correct. It was Rick Burleson in his 2nd year. Real strong shortstop. He gets a little bit underrated in history of the Red Sox, but he was a real sharp fielder and just a good contact hitter, and kind of underappreciated. So anyway, but it wasn't Rick Burleson a lot less than it was 2 other guys that really brought things together in 1975. And that was, I think, probably the greatest year for rookie teammates in the history of baseball that year. Two outfielders, Fred Lynn, who not only won, Fred Lynn won most valuable player. He not only won Rookie of the Year, but he won most valuable player in the American League, which is very rare when you win a Rookie of the Year and most valuable player. And not far behind him was Jim Rice, who actually bypassed Fred Lynn career-wise and became a Hall of Famer, and drove in 100 runs that year too. And between Lynn and Rice, they really put together a great season, and they won the pennant in 1975. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of people believe that the peak of baseball popularity in America was 1975. You know, since then, baseball was still the national pastime then. Really, baseball can't make that claim anymore. The NFL, pro football, is really the national pastime of America, even though I like baseball the best still. Baseball really peaked. And I think one of the reasons that baseball peaked in 1975 was the World Series that year between the Big Red Machine, the Cincinnati Reds, who were just an overwhelming offensive machine, and the Red Sox in 75. And what I want to show you now is Game 6 of the World Series in 1975, one of the most iconic moments in baseball history, tie game, Carlton Fisk at the plate, extra innings, and here is what happened right now.
Seventh game in this 1975 World Series. Carlton Fisk becomes the first player in the series to hit one over the wall into the net. Red Sox win it 7-6 in 12 innings. And Carlton Fisk had a lot of little boy in him right there, Joe.
He took one step, knew it was going to be close, he knew it was gone, and it was dancing in the streets all the way around. Johnny Pesky greets him at first base, and he is dancing as he gets his second base.
It came very close to hitting that foul pole. We'll see how close.
There it is. Pick it up as it comes, and there it is. It did hit it, and Foster did come up with the ball, so there will be a seventh game here tomorrow night.
What a World Series, Joe Garagiola, have we seen here between these two clubs. It's fitting that we have a seventh game, you know?
It had to go to the seventh game, Dick, because they battled and battled. And now tomorrow night, it'll be Gullett, Bill Lee, this crowd refusing to leave. Amazing. You saw their ball club battle back. They've been up and down, clutch plays, clutch catches. And they are just dancing in the streets here as Carlton Fisk brings a seventh game.
A lot of body English for Carlton Fisk. Watch it.
How many steps does he take? One. He waits to see it. Get over. Get over.
He knew it. There it is.
I tell you, one of the more dramatic home runs in World Series history. And there is Tom Yawkey to the left. Haywood Sullivan. And there are the fans, and the picture says it all.
Well, you won't see many more exciting World Series than the 1975 Classic.
Now, I always like to show that at the end, because that moment where Carlton Fisk is actually wheeling the ball fair with his arms, like a air traffic controller or something. It's probably one of the most viewed moments in the history of baseball right there. And maybe perhaps one of the greatest moments in the history of baseball. Now, I do have another trivia question I'm just going to shout out to you that I have kind of forgotten to give. In 1967, the Red Sox were inspired by the downfall of one of their teammates who got hit in the eye by a Jack Hamilton of the Angels fastball. He got hit in the eye. He was really never the same again. He did have another 100 RBI season a couple years later, but he missed a year and a half, and he was a Hall of Fame capable player, caliber player that got hit in the eye and was never quite the same. What was the name of that player that got hit in the eye? You could just kind of shout it out.
So we got somebody shouting out immediately, Tony Conigliaro.
That is correct. Tony Conigliaro. Very good.
Conigliaro. All right. Sorry, I said it incorrectly.
The appreciation that the players that were playing in that 1975 World Series Game 6 was just overwhelming. Pete Rose of the Reds actually came up to the third base coach, Don Zimmer of the Red Sox, and said, Popeye, he called him Popeye, that was his nickname. Whether we win or lose this game, we are playing in the greatest game ever played. And Pete Rose actually said that to Johnny Bench. He came up to the plate. Johnny Bench was behind the plate. He said, Johnny, we're playing in the greatest game ever played, win or lose. And I think it's kind of cool that the players, even knowing that they might lose the game, realized that they were making history playing in one of the greatest games of all time. And that brings us to 1986. And I'm not going to play this whole video because it's too depressing for Red Sox fans. But in 1986, Game 6, Red Sox this time were leading the World Series 3-2. They were it was the ninth inning, and they had a 1-run lead. And Bob Stanley, who was a pretty competent reliever, was on the mound for the Red Sox here. And things went awry in a hurry.
And it's going to go to the backstop. Here comes Mitchell to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base. And he pops it in the air, foul off to the right. Gitlin coming over. He will not have a play. That was a wild pitch.
Way inside, Gitlin reaches for it. You see it hardly moved as far as shifting, and it gets by him, a wild pitch. Apparently not near where he was looking for the pitch.
5-5 in a delirious 10th inning. Line drive foul.
And Marty Barrett was out of position because they had Knight really picked off, but Stanley didn't see him. There it is again. You see, he just reaches for the ball. Down goes Mookie. It kind of sailed inside. And here comes Barrett in to talk to Stanley because had Mookie hit just a weak ground ball, Barrett was way out of position because they had a good chance to get Knight at second base.
Can you believe this ball game at Shea?
Oh, brother.
So the winning run is at second base with 2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
That's enough of that one. I don't know. I've played that one all the way through, and it's like, why do Red Sox want to see that? No Red Sox fans really want to see that again and again, right, over and over again. I got one more trivia question for you that I want to just give out, and then there'll be one more, the visual one. This one's a little bit tougher, and you guys deserve a tougher question. So What was the name of the first baseman for the Red Sox who won the 1995 Most Valuable Player Award in the American League?
95 Most Valuable Player.
Right.
All right. We'll see if folks have any guesses there. There is people saying that in that last game they should have kept Clemens in. So
well, I want to talk
definitely some strong opinions there.
That's a good point. 1995 AL MVP.
People are chiming in. Move on.
Move on. Oh, you guys are too good. You guys are too good. Right.
A couple different folks are chiming in with that.
The Indians Albert Bell for that, even though Albert Bell had way better stats than Move On. Everybody hated, all the writers hated Albert Bell because he was such a jerk. And so Move On won MVP that year, but he was a well-qualified candidate. Now, one of the reasons that the Red Sox struggled at times not to win a World Series in '86 is actually an example because they've had like a premier pitcher or an ace pitcher who did not perform quite as well in the World Series as he did in the regular season. Clemens was a little bit of an example of that. He went 24-4 that year, and he was just absolutely dominant all year. But he wasn't at his best in the playoffs and World Series that year. But what I want to show you now is just an absolutely phenomenal little video about a guy named Pedro Martinez. Now, Pedro Martinez pitched for Montreal, then he pitched for the Red Sox. And I'm not going to show you one particular game highlight. I want to show you Pedro Martinez, just a little montage of his greatness. I think Pedro Martinez was the most talented pitcher that ever pitched for the Red Sox. What I want you to watch here is the late ball movement on his changeup and his slider and the way he pitches. And he pitched fearlessly. He used to pitch inside to people. He was very intimidating. And during the steroid era of baseball in the late 1990s and early 2000s, when teams were scoring 8 runs and 10 runs and 12 runs a game and hitting home runs all over the place, Pedro Martinez actually had an ERA under 2 at times. And it was just, he was so far superior to every other pitcher in baseball during his era. And you'll see why here. I want to show you, just watch the late movement on his pitches and watch his fastball and watch how intimidating he was. Watching in I believe it was 1999. In fact, I'm pretty sure I was covering the Indians at that time, and the Indians and the Red Sox were playing a Game 5 for the ALDS championship, and the Red Sox were down. Pedro Martinez came in that game and pitched 6 no-hit innings against the Indians. I have never seen a more dominant pitcher in one performance as I did. I believe that was at Municipal Stadium or at Jacobs Field in Cleveland. Pitched those 6 innings, shut out the Indians on no hits, and actually just put them away. Now, one of the interesting things, we're going to go to 2004 now, and finally go to that championship season. And one of the interesting things about 2004 was that at the beginning of that year, their most beloved shortstop, Nomar Garciaparra, was traded, and he had some injury problems. He had some physical issues, and the Red Sox traded Nomar at just the right time because he was never really the same again after that. And another interesting thing was Pedro Martinez had his worst year by far He had a 3.90 ERA, which was lofty for him. He had his worst year by far in 2004, but he came through in the World Series and pitched 7 shutout innings. Now, I had a hard time deciding what videos to show for 2004 because there were so many wonderful ones. And I am going to show you, they were down 3-0 against the Yankees, as you all remember. They were down by a run in the 9th inning of Game 4. It was a foregone conclusion that they were doomed. And then they got the famous stolen base. They won that game, and they won the series against the Yankees. And a lot of people think that the beating the Yankees in 2004 for the ALCS killed the curse of the Bambino. I don't believe that. I believe that the curse of the Bambino could not be broken without the Red Sox winning a world championship, because after all, they hadn't won one in 86 years. And this is the video of them actually clinching the American League pennant against the Yankees.
This would be the 5th pennant for the Red Sox since that 1918 season. Here it is, ground ball to second. Reese, the Boston Red Sox have won the pennant. Spread the news, all right. The Boston Red Sox earned this celebration here at Yankee Stadium with the biggest comeback in postseason baseball history.
I've heard people say that they wish that had been accomplished at Fenway Park. And I don't agree with that. I don't know if you agree with that or not. We could discuss that after our question and answer period, but I think it was absolutely essential that they won that at Yankee Stadium with Frank Sinatra singing, New York, New York. That really kind of put it right into the, Yankees' faces. I don't know. I think it was really appropriate that the Red Sox clinched the pennant at Yankee Stadium instead of Fenway Park. You might disagree. Now, I'm going to show you another highlight from 2004 in the World Series. The Red Sox had so many contributors in 2004 to their success and to their World Championship. And even little-known guys contributed. This was one of those moments. It was a 9-9 game against the Cardinals in Game 1 when a guy named Mark Bellhorn stepped to the plate with a guy on base, and this is what happened there.
Into right field again, down the line, near the pole, home run, Bellhorn. A 2-run shot, and it's 11-9 Boston in Game 1. One with much more significance. Off the fencing along the foul pole down the right field line to put Boston back on top
11-9. Now, let's go for the last trivia question right here, Clayton.
All right. So the last question is, what team stupidly released Big Papi David Ortiz in 2002, allowing the Red Sox to sign him? Was it the Miami Marlins, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Minnesota Twins, or the St. Louis Cardinals? We'll give people a couple of moments here to weigh in. We have folks, let's see, nobody has chimed in yet on Facebook, but I bet you we will. People on Facebook seem to be agreeing with the folks that I've seen so far here. I don't know if anybody else would like to vote among the choices. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. Yep. People are coming in. All right. I'm going to close the polls.
The answer is the Minnesota Twins, and they've been kicking themselves ever since. Now, I want to, we talked about how, and I got one more video to play tonight, and we talked about how all these different contributors contributed to that 2004 championship that broke the curse of the Bambino. But there was no doubt about it in 2004 and 2007 when they won it again, in 2013 when they won another World Series, who the emotional and competitive leader was for the Red Sox, and that was Big Papi David Ortiz. Not only was he a great man and so well respected, but he always rose to the occasion. When the Red Sox needed him the most, when they needed a big hit, they needed a home run, they needed it in the playoffs, the World Series, he was the one that really came through time and time again, and that made him maybe one of the greatest Boston Red Sox players since Carl Yastrzemski. Was Big Papi David Ortiz. And I'm not going to show you one particular video. I'm just going to show you a montage of great Big Papi moments right here.
There goes Ramirez. That ball is hit well. Deep to right. Dive. Can't get to it. Off the wall. One run is in. Here comes Ramirez. And the throw goes right to the middle of the infield. And Boston has gone ahead on the first hit of the series by David Ortiz, and it came at a big time.
2 2/3 did K-Rod. And here's David Ortiz. You see that number today with 3 hits. This could be 4. Back it goes. It's over. The Red Sox win, and they're moving on.
See you later tonight. Ortiz hits it to deep left field. Back at the monster and gone. It's a 1-run game. Dynamic clutch hitter this guy has been for the last 2 years for the Boston Red Sox. Ortiz fights it off center field. Damon run into the plate, and he can keep on running to New York. Game 6 tomorrow night. And here's Ortiz. He rips one into right field. Back at the wall, 2-0 Red Sox. You talk about picking up your ball club after losing a runner at the plate. Ortiz has done that all year, all October, and he goes deep to put Boston out in front. Swing and a drive, deep right field. If it's fair, it is way out of here. Ortiz, who's never homered against Benoit in his career. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall.
Okay, well, that is my last video. And I have a question and answer period for you. Whatever you have if you have any questions at all, you could, I don't know if you chat them or if you can shout them out or whatever you want to do. I'd be glad to answer them about my book, about the Red Sox, about history. I wanted to add one thing real quick. I know you Red Sox fans are disappointed in how 2020 went along, but I think that you should be very optimistic for the future. First of all, if you're going to have a lousy year, this was the year to do it. It was a 60-game season. It was kind of a quasi season. And I think that if Chris Sale can come back healthy and Eduardo Rodriguez can come back healthy, you got a pitcher named Nathan Eovaldi who throws in the upper 90s. If he can stay healthy, and you have a kid named Tanner Houck, who's a really, really good young arm, real talented kid. And so if they can put together, the pitching staff was a mess this year. I think the pitching staff can come back real quickly together. There are rumors that Trevor Bauer of the Reds, who's a free agent, might be coming to Boston to talk with the Red Sox. And if they can sign a guy like Bauer to head their pitching staff, even if Sale can't come back, you got something there. And there's a lot of good young hitters on this team. So don't worry about the Red Sox. 2021, I think the Red Sox are going to be back in contention. Now, does anyone have any questions for me?
So, Marty, we do have one question that's come in so far. I do want to let people know, though, I just put out across a chat to everybody, and I can put the chat link or the link that I just shared in the chat in Zoom. I'll put it on Facebook and YouTube as well, to your book, so people can find that on Etsy. And I know that if anybody is really interested in purchasing your book, that you sign them and we'll send them off to folks. So I just wanted to put a plug out for you before we got to the end here. The question that has come across, and we can certainly repeat that here in the future too, but we certainly appreciate you coming and just sharing this awesome program with us tonight, Marty. The question that has come across so far is there any doubt in your mind as to whether Big Papi, David Ortiz, is the greatest Red Sox of all time?
Well, that's
a pretty high bar, but he is pretty amazing. What do you think?
I'd put him in there with Yastrzemski, as far as, impact and greatness. That might be a little bit of a stretch because he didn't. Well, I mean, he played. Yastrzemski played so many years for the Red Sox, but I wouldn't put him in there with Ted Williams. No, Ted Williams was the greatest pure hitter in the history of baseball, let alone the Red Sox. So I would say Big Papi, I'd put him certainly in the top 3. Yeah,
okay.
More so than like a Jim Rice or whatever. I would say Big Papi had a little bit more of an impact.
I wonder. So another question is, if you'd like to talk a little bit about some of the foolish players that have left the Sox and gone to such loser teams, like one that starts with a Y that's a little bit south of us here. Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk. There was a guy who wrote a book about where it was famous for saying, there's a time to think and there's a time for baseball, I think, or I can't remember what Johnny's his exact quote was, but I remember, he was certainly a fan here, and there's been many over the years.
Well, there's many. I think every team could have their claims that they've either given up on a player too early or overrated a player that they brought in. But I think the Red Sox, from an overall personnel standpoint over the years, and it's borne out time and time again because they're still one of the strongest franchises in baseball history. They just had that one bad stretch in the 20s and early 30s, and then in the early 60s. But other than that, they've been either average or better than average, or a pennant contender or a world champion year after year after year. So I wouldn't put the Red Sox in any level as far as being foolish in their personnel decisions. Their foolish personnel decisions, really the worst one was just not signing any African American ball players until Pumpsie Green in 1959, and that's what that certainly set them back. But that wasn't really foolish. That was just kind of, I think there was some racism rampant in their organization in the upper management positions during that era.
And do you think it's mostly been a money game when we've lost some players over the years, and we've had like some of the defectors that have gone to the Yankees? Do you think that's just because the Yankees offered them more money? That's the critique I've heard. But
I don't think so. I think the Red Sox have been pretty wise spenders and pretty lucrative spenders. They've spent their money. They have the Red Sox are one of the top organizations in baseball in terms of money earned. And, you know, they sell out Fenway Park all the time. And I wouldn't say that. I think that the Mookie Betts, you know, they lost Mookie Betts to the Dodgers, but I think Mookie Betts just didn't want to sign with the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox made him a competitive offer, and Mookie Betts ended up going to the Dodgers. And that was, you know, kind of a shame. And that, I think, hurt him this year. Mookie Betts had a great year with Los Angeles. But overall, I don't think Red Sox fans have too much to complain about. And even having a year like they had this year, people keep in mind that they still have fresh in their memories the championships from 2004 and 2007, 2013, 2018. You know, there's a lot of teams. I mean, the Red Sox have probably been the most successful franchise in Major League Baseball since the turn of the century. And so a year like they had this year, I think, could be tolerated. Indians fans here in Cleveland have been waiting since 1948, which was I'm 63 years old. That's 8 years before I was born when the Indians last won the World Series. So I think that the Red Sox fans have a lot of great memories, especially recently with all those championships. I do want to point out, and I know you put the link up there, but I do want to point out my book is really a lot of fun. I write in a very fun, entertaining style, and it's a very enlightening book. And all you got to do is go to Etsy.com and go to Gitlin Books if you don't have the link there. Gitlin, Gitlin books, all one word, on Etsy, and you can pick up the book. I autograph it for free, I personalize it for free, and I ship it for free. And it's only $20. You can't beat it, man. It's just a really, really fun book. And I think any Red Sox fans, whether yourselves or as a gift for somebody else, would really like it. Anybody else have any questions?
No other questions have come through yet, and I'm sure I could sit here and talk and ask you questions all night, but I certainly want to make space for other folks if they have any other questions they'd like to ask.
Yeah, I did go a little long today, so, you know, but I enjoyed it. I do want to thank everyone for coming in too. I really appreciate it.
Well, no, it's been great. We've had a couple of people who've been confused with some technical issues, but we don't need to worry about that here. We have had folks joining us on YouTube and Facebook this entire program. YouTube did give us a couple of copyright blocks, and they took it down briefly, but we're back up live again now. I think sometimes when we're sharing other YouTube things, they get proprietary. But,
oh, okay.
Yep, but we're so glad. Thank you, Marty, so much for joining us tonight. This has been a lot of fun. It has been kind of a disappointing year for some Red Sox fans. I think it's been a hard year for all baseball fans because we can't go to the parks. You know, how many of my friends were watching, you know, staying up super late to watch Korean baseball back in the spring because they just had to get some ball.
5 in the morning.
Yeah.
5 in the morning they were watching that. Mm-hmm.
Yep. But it's great to stroll back, and it is a good reminder that we have been very blessed with an awesome team here. And I don't know if it's the dirty water. I don't know what to ascribe our good fortune to, but some really, you know, top-notch players, some good management. And I have to think, I think the fan base here is, you know, being a member of Red Sox Nation has always been awesome. It's just like they stuck with them through many, like for some periods there that it didn't look so promising, and it's paid off for people lately. So
well, I have a whole chapter in the book about Red Sox Nation and Neil Diamond and Dirty Water and all the stuff that's the Dropkick Murphys and all this stuff that's associated with the Red Sox. That's a real fun chapter too in the book.
Absolutely. You know, we could have spent we could riff on that for quite a while, I'm sure, right now. Yeah. So great.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate everyone. Thanks so much for coming, everybody.
Thank you, Marty. It's been super fun. I hope you have a great night, and we will see you again. I did share a link online earlier at the beginning of the program, but I will repeat it here for anybody who is who's still with us here till the very end. The next program we're doing with Marty is happening on. Oh, I had it up here and I shared the link. I believe it was the 21st. So it's Wednesday, the 21st is when we'll be doing the celebration of animation. So please come back. We are going to be joining the Quincy Historical Society here online tomorrow night, talking about the history of Howard Johnson's advertising. So I hope people come and join us for that tomorrow, and come back on the 21st and we'll see Marty again and talk about some more great times and just enjoy some of the finer things in life. So Marty, thank you so much for reminding us, just kind of what brings some smiles to our faces in days where sometimes it's kind of hard to find reasons to smile. I found lots tonight and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you again. You have a great night now, everybody.
See you again soon. Take care. Good night.
Bye-bye.